The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the expressed written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Tuesday, May 8th, Wednesday, May 9th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, live from the Great White North in the Cariboo region on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR radio network. You can also follow us live on Periscope.tv every Monday through Friday night. Hello, everybody on Periscope. Good to see you from near and far. Our YouTube channel, where we store our archives. You can go to that. Please hit the subscribe button. I would appreciate that. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. If you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, you can do a little shopping in our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the encounter online dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. You can check out my latest blog there as well. We also got great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. We welcome you. It's Tuesday night, and we got a great show for you. I hope you brought your paranormal stories out. Our guest tonight is going the first 2 hours. We're going to open up the phone lines in hour number 3 as well. So bring your stories. I want to hear your paranormal stories in hour number 3. I will tell you the phone number a little bit later on in the show. So I appreciate you doing that and coming along for the ride tonight. Imagine if you are willing to have the ability to photograph the other side. The idea that on film, digital frames, or video, being able to capture the unknown sounds really unfathomable. Sounds like a great career choice, doesn't it? Well, this is the passion of tonight's guest, Shannon Taggart, whose paranormal journey started on a mild curiosity. Based in Brooklyn, New York, Shannon's photographs have been exhibited and featured internationally, including within the publications Time, New York Times Magazine, Discover, and Newsweek. Her work has been recognized by Nikon, Magnum Photos, and the Ing Morath Foundation, American Photography, the International Photography Awards, and the Alexia Foundation for World Peace. The quest for spiritual knowledge keeps her going, with her book on seances coming out very, very soon. Welcome to tonight's show, Shannon. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here as well. And, you know, we always like to start off with a little bit of a backstory because everybody always has a reason as to why they got into this. What is yours?
Well, the reason I was drawn to begin photographing mediums and paranormal topics is because when I was a teenager, my cousin saw a medium, and that medium described details about my grandfather's death that proved to be a true story that was hidden from parts of the family. And the event was so shocking that I was really touched by it, and I couldn't help but wonder, how could a person know such a thing? How could a stranger know one of my family's secrets? It was just too bizarre to fathom. It was unexplainable. So this is what kind of drew my interest to the topic.
Now, when you were going through your own experiences and learning about this, did you believe it at all? Was it something that you needed convincing of, or did it just seem too surreal?
Well, when I first began the project, and I began meeting mediums and spiritualists. And for those who don't know, spiritualism is it's a religion that is based on the belief that we don't die and that we can talk to the dead, as living people can communicate with those who are dead. And when I first began, I was so curious about it, but I didn't know what to think of it. And I also I couldn't wrap my brain around the thought that these very sane people were talking to dead people. I just couldn't understand it. I was curious. It's not that I dismissed them. I believed that they were having the experiences. I just couldn't understand it. And I was curious about it. I was open to it, but I hadn't had any experiences myself at that point.
Well, when you started having these intuitive ideas that you needed to look into this more, did you feel pressed into it? Did you feel it was something that you needed to do, that you needed to accomplish, or was it just mild curiosity that led you down this path?
Well, I mean, it was the personal experience through my cousin that made me seek out experiences for myself. And I thought that maybe I'd spend one summer photographing spiritualists and mediums, and instead the topic became so interesting to me that here I am 17 years later finally compiling my project into a book. I mean, it really did become a point of true interest in research for me.
Was your family into it? Did they kind of look at you with that weird eye and just kind of say, what is our daughter doing looking into this crap?
Well, actually, my family, I was raised Catholic. I'm from a big Irish Catholic family. And the Irish Catholics I know and my family specifically were very open to the idea, because Catholicism doesn't dismiss the spiritualist beliefs. They just, they believe that we live after death and that the personality survives and that our loved ones are with us. So it doesn't discount the spiritualist beliefs. I think they're maybe a little bit wary of it, but many Catholics go to places like Lilydale, which is where I began my project, for readings. And they don't necessarily consider it sacrilegious. They just see it as an extension of their beliefs. So my family was actually pretty open to it, but then, they still are sometimes weirded out by some of my stories.
So when you decided to go all into this, you were a professional photographer at the time. You were busy doing whatever you could in order to make a living, which I'm assuming was, pretty healthy because, photography is a very, very skilled artistry, in my opinion. And I've seen some of your work. Extremely talented you are, by the way. And,
thank you.
And when you decided to start focusing straight on the paranormal, how did that change your life, that you were coming to some sort of acceptance, Shannon, that this is what you needed to do? This was your path.
Well, I've always worn two hats, and I've always done my journalism and commercial work for a living. And then this project has been a labor of love, and it's something I've done in my own time with my own money. So I was kind of able to have the best of both worlds, like work as, a regular photographer with straightforward assignment work, and then also pursue my passion, which is to try to make a big visual story about spiritualism and mediumship. So it's kind of been both, although sometimes they cross over, and I have had some of the work published in professional places, and sometimes it does weird some people out when they find out that's what I do, and others are just very interested in it. It really depends on the person.
Let's talk about the reaction, as some people are a little weirded out and some think it's the greatest idea to ever do. When you're talking to people and you tell them what's going on, could you elaborate a little bit on the reactions you get from people?
Well, there was one time where I went and I was showing my portfolio at a Science magazine, and the editor was she looked just completely disgusted by even having to look at photographs of mediums and spiritualists. And I was just showing it as like this is like a long-term storytelling piece I've been doing. I showed it in addition to some of my professional work. And she just took the book and pushed it away and was like, "This is a Science magazine. I have no idea why you would even bring this in here." And I was really taken aback by it. And then this woman ended up leaving her position, and a new person came into that position and actually ended up hiring me specifically because I did do my spiritualism work. So that was kind of a funny experience to have, where it was like the same magazine, the same editorship, completely two different opinions depending on the person who held the job. So that's pretty much been my experience. I have to kind of tiptoe and figure out if people are going to be interested or not. And you never really know. Sometimes you meet people and you totally expect them to be really turned off by the topic, and it's the exact opposite, and vice versa.
When you started hearing that negativity, did you take it as something that you were doing wrong or felt that you were doing wrong, or did you feel that you needed to prepare yourself for the negativity of the comments from people who don't understand, or maybe they're religious-based, or maybe they just do not feel comfortable around these topics?
Well, I've learned to take it as a compliment, because I really think what's going on is they're reacting to the images. They're having a reaction, and that maybe I hope that I have crossed a boundary where I'm making them have to question, is there really something to this? Is something really going on here? Is this worth thinking about? even raising that topic, I mean, even if I get a negative reaction, I think it can be positive because I'm obviously hitting a nerve.
Are you doing that on purpose, though? Or is it just part of the experimental journey, Shannon, that you were going down and realize that it is going to affect everybody around you differently?
I think at first I was not trying to do that on purpose. I was just trying to make interesting photographs. And at that point, I didn't really understand the taboo of the paranormal, which now I feel like I understand better. And I feel that paranormal topics are maybe not for everybody. Maybe some people feel really disturbed or destabilized just by contemplating it, and that's okay. And I actually think maybe the paranormal is not for everybody. And so that's another thing. That's another reason why I try not to take offense. But at first, I wasn't really trying to be that provocative. I was just trying to make interesting photographs. And then as I moved deeper into the project, I really was trying to push the line between art and evidence and to bring people into a paranormal space and kind of force them to question what was happening in these situations.
Did it make you really question yourself internally whether you were doing the right thing or not?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because sometimes the aversion to the project is so strong that it does make me think, oh my God, is there something the matter with even trying to make pictures of this? And it is a controversial topic. But at the same time, in our culture, I feel like there's some hypocrisy because some of the paranormal television shows are extremely popular. And, I mean, The Long Island Medium, for example, that's a show about a medium talking to dead people, and you couldn't find something more commercial if you tried. It's so there's that too. I don't know. And it's complicated, I think.
But internally, within yourself, was there any, because you had a Catholic upbringing, I know you were kind of accepting of it, but was there any crossover on whether or not you were crossing a line internally within yourself, because you are now promoting your work in the paranormal as reality where a lot of people are very uncomfortable with that?
Well, as I had experiences and I met people who I felt were genuinely practicing mediumship in a positive way, I wasn't conflicted. There is some ethical confusion when you get to the seances of physical mediumship, which maybe we'll get into more, which is kind of the old school Victorian style seances where they try to move objects or create the sensational substance of ectoplasm, and that part is more ethically fraught. But as far as mediumship goes, I feel okay with it because many of the people I have met are sincere practitioners who are doing the work of mediumship solely to provide healing, or that is their intention. So that's a noble intention, and so documenting it, I think, is positive. If that makes sense, if that answers I hope I answered your question with that.
Around you, though, did you make people around you accepting of what you were doing, or were you, like the rest of us out there, that the minute you started delving more and more into this field, that some of the closest people to you were pulling themselves away?
Yeah, I mean, I have friends who just don't really talk about this with me, or, or family who just kind of, we don't talk about it, and that's okay. And yeah, it is, like I said, I kind of accept that it's not for everybody. And I also realize that you really I can't make anybody believe anything with my pictures. the best I could do is make them question or have a different thought in their head than they would normally have. The only thing that can really make people interested in the paranormal is a personal experience, I think. At least that's my opinion.
So let's start heading down the paranormal road with you, if you don't mind, because I think this is all important. When did you decide that you internally needed to focus on this project? Was it a couple of years ago? Was it 10 years ago? And how did you come to that decision?
Well, in 2001, I began spending time in Lilydale, which is the world's largest spiritualist community. And I really thought I would only be there one summer, and I would figure out everything about spiritualism and mediumship, and I would make a nice, neat little project, and it would be done. And instead, I discovered that spiritualism is an incredibly interesting topic. It's really important to American history. It also had this very interesting, forgotten photographic past, meaning there's all this spiritualist photography that happened in the late 1800s and through the 1930s that was written out of the history books. So this project ended up being ripe for research and for history, and I was uncovering so much hidden information that I had to expand the project into not only pictures but some writing and some research, and I delved in fully, and it's a complicated topic, so I think that's why it expanded and has taken me this long to make sense of and to finally compile into a book.
You speak with your camera. For those out there who aren't as talented, I mean, we all take pictures, whether it's with our cell phones or our GoPros or whatever it may be, but for you who does it where you are creating art and telling stories among your photographs, do you remember the first anomaly that you ever caught?
Yes. So early on in the project, I was making pictures, but I was also really questioning if I was really even able to photograph the topic of spiritualism, because there's all these invisible things happening. You know, you're in a room and people are talking to presences you can't see, and so this was a thought very much in my mind, and during this time I started having some happy accidents with my camera. And one of the first ones was I was in the Lilydale Museum, and I was photographing a woman there, and I shot 2 rolls of film, and on 2 different frames, I got this strange purple orb right on her shoulder, and it was pretty big, and it was 2 different frames on 2 different rolls of film, and but it was the same spot on her body. And so I printed these pictures, and I brought them back, and I said, I got this weird thing in a picture of you. I thought you might find it interesting. And she looked at the picture, and she said, "Oh, that's my husband, Bob." And I was kind of taken aback by this, because I had never thought of photography in this way, but she genuinely believed that it was Bob's energy that I captured in that picture, and I didn't have an explanation or why that purple orb appeared. So this and some other happy accidents that started to happen made me think about photographic anomaly and the synchronicity that sometimes happen with photographic mistakes, and I started to use that within the project.
Now, a lot of people will go out and they will say that, okay, you caught an orb, maybe it was some color, maybe it was the lighting, maybe it was something shining off the lens. Obviously, with you being a photographer and a professional photographer, you know all of the ins and outs to what is dust particles, what is sunlight, so on and so forth. How did you know that you were actually catching things that were anomalous rather than, say, just pareidolia?
Well, I don't know, actually. I mean, I do know I can guess at some of the technical stuff that's happening. And what I decided to do is to embrace these mistakes and not worry about, oh, is it just dust or is it just like motion blur, but just to like play with it and explore it. So meaning like, for me, it doesn't really matter if it's just flare or motion blur, but if there's something meaningful within it that corresponds to the invisible experience I was trying to document, that gets exciting. I kind of refer to it as photographic synchronicity. Like I've taken a picture of a long exposure man where his face, he suddenly looks like has a mustache and a pair of glasses, and then he shows me a picture of his great grandfather, and it looks like his blurred face in trance. You know, it's moments like that get really exciting for me. And the fact that professional photographers would say, "Oh, it's just blur," you know, that's just, you know, or this is just dust or flare or whatever. That's fine. But then somebody else sees it and finds meaning in that. The multiple interpretation is part of my project, because photography is a tricky thing. It's ambiguous. You always need to interpret a photograph. So instead of like rejecting these anomalies, I tried to make as many of them as possible to see what happens, which is an approach that some people don't understand, but I've found really exciting.
You mentioned that you were trying to create them. How does one do that?
Well, I mean, I said, like, for example, I'd be in a seance, say, and trying to photograph. There was this one woman who was in a trance, and she had a red light on her, and I was trying to make a very straightforward, sharp photograph of her. And everybody in the room at the time was clairvoyantly seeing a second face right next to her face it looked like her, but a little different, and it was floating right next to her. And they were saying, maybe it's your grandmother, or you in a past life. And so I did not see this face with my eyes. And I made an exposure. And when I got the film back, I saw next to her was a perfectly floating face that looked like her, but a little bit different, exactly in the spot where everybody was seeing it. And now I understand that this is probably a function of my shutter speed and movement. But it was such a beautifully rendered, perfect metaphor for what everybody was saying happening in the room, but I couldn't see with my eyes. So experiences like this and some others made me really experiment, like, okay, let's see what happens in a long exposure. And I'm not going to care if it's just motion. I'm going to just see what is rendered within that motion. And okay, I'll go up into the mountains with some orb photographers and see what happens. Like the spirit of experimentation or breaking rules of professional photography, meaning like welcoming a long exposure in a bright room, or really playing with the idea of what was proper to do, just became part of my project, and it's something I started to really try to work with as much as possible.
Did you learn on your own, Shannon, or did you research to see if anybody else was doing this type of photography?
The research into spirit photography and spiritualistic use of photography is something I definitely started to research. Early on, I did not find a lot of contemporary people working with photography in this way. Over the course of the project, you know, the orb movement kind of picked up, and that's what I would very much term the spirit photography of today, is when people try to get orbs to appear in their photos or move around in certain patterns or appear in certain spots, or they zoom into them to see faces. But nowadays, because when I started, you know, I was shooting film and working in a dark room, and now everybody has cameras everywhere. So I've learned there's a lot of mediums who are using photography and documenting their own trances, and you know, there's a lot of people practicing ITC, which is instrumental trance communication, which is when you use technology in combination with mediumship to try and get images or create evidence. There's a lot of people using cameras in that movement within spiritualism. So as the digital technology got more popular, a lot more people started experimenting. So that's kind of an exciting aspect of this project that, a lot of people are using cameras now, I would say.
Now, when you start looking for these, are you putting yourself in paranormal situations, or are you just going to cemeteries as well as seances, or do you just photograph anything, maybe walking down the street of your town, photographing people just to see who may be walking with them?
For the most part, I really stay in a spiritualist context with my camera. So usually, a lot of times I'm the only person in the room with the camera, but sometimes when I'm working with people, the ITC, the instrumental transcommunication people, they will have gear and cameras and video cameras, and I'll just kind of, if they all want to go to a cemetery, then we'll all go to a cemetery. But I don't go to a cemetery just by myself. I'm always directed by, because I'm really trying to focus on things that spiritualists do, things that mediums do. So if there's a bunch of mediums who are going to go to a graveyard with a camera, I'm going to go there too. But I'm really kind of I look at the project as kind of an ethnography, like an ethnographic study. So I'm trying to be truthful about what spiritualists actually do. And and it's mostly, the paranormal does cross over into spiritualism, but a lot of times, like, you'll meet people like ghost hunters who don't know anything about spiritualism, or you'll meet spiritualists who say, we don't deal with ghosts, we deal with spirits. So there's some tension there between the two topics, spiritualism and paranormal research.
How do you define the difference between spirituality and paranormal research then? Because it is such a hot-button topic in this field.
Well, spiritualism is, spiritualists describe their spiritualism as a religion, a philosophy, and a science. So that means, yes, it operates as a religion, but it's also a philosophy of, like, a way of life, and also they're interested in proving scientifically that we live beyond death. So there's threefold going on there. But in the paranormal, a lot of times you'll meet people who are not interested in religion at all. They're not interested in the way people have practiced in the past. They're just interested in having a ghost experience or trying to study or monitor energy. And sometimes it crosses over, but I guess it would be the whole, whether you like religion in your life or not. That would be one of the differences between paranormal researchers and spiritualists. I mean, spiritualists are about religion and science. Maybe some paranormal researchers are only about the science part and not interested in the religion or the religious aspect. I guess that's where the tension is between those two groups. And I mean, you always have terminology, spiritualists don't like, they were constantly saying, we don't deal with ghosts, we deal with spirits, where paranormal researchers might be focusing solely on ghosts and not really understand the difference between ghosts and spirits. It gets tricky. It also gets tricky depending on who you're talking to.
Well, the good news is we're talking to you about it tonight, so that's always a good thing, because I think this is just absolutely fascinating. I have to tell you, everybody hopes for that photograph. When you're on a paranormal experience, I know, and I've said this many a time, so it's not new to our listener base here, but locally here, where I am stationed, we have a very haunted museum that I run a paranormal ghost tour to help raise money for the museum's nonprofit society. And every now and again, we get people who capture some sort of anomalous photographs. And we've had some that have been absolutely fantastic, and others where, well, they're easily debunkable. So when you have amateur people going in, say, and the highest grade camera they have is, say, on their Samsung or their iPhone, comparatively to what you're using, what is the biggest difference in what you're doing compared to, say, someone who's just snapping shots with their cell phone?
Well, I think probably the biggest difference in terms of like orbs, it would be the distance between the flash and the lens is shorter, so you're more apt to get orbs with those type of cameras, with cell phones or with the smaller digital cameras. But that said, I've seen really interesting things happen with orbs where people will say, okay, they'll start taking pictures and then they'll call the orbs in to the picture, or they'll be in a charged space and they'll get all these orbs that are just like, you know, the room is covered in orbs, and it's kind of, you know, it's the picture is so powerful that you're like, oh, it does look like something's happening with these orbs. You know, I mean, photography, I think you can get interesting results with any type of equipment. I mean, what you're describing sounds like you're all in a charged space, so maybe anomalous things happen more often with the camera in those situations. I've heard many stories where people actually see phenomena and then the camera freezes up. Do you have any of those stories, or have you had any of those experiences on your ghost hunts?
Normally, people on our ghost hunts aren't using any type of video camera, but we have had cell phone batteries drained. But I mean, that could be due to inclement weather. That could be due to their phone is just a piece of garbage. You know, there's ways to try and break that down. You know, I don't want to go tinfoil too early in this show. You know, so I think it's a matter of, you know, just hoping that they catch something. And we tell all of our tourists when they come in, take as many photographs as you can. And we had one photo last year where literally, Shannon, it looked like there was a gentleman standing on the stairwell. Full body apparition, man standing on the stairwell with his arm resting on the railing going up the stairs. And we know for a fact there is nobody there.
Wow, I'd love to see that picture.
I will tweet it to you right now as we speak, because I have that ability.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's an amazing photo. We'll title it Barn Man. So if you want to see it, go on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Okay. And I will put it on there for those of you who are listening. But Shannon, I'm going to tweet this straight to you here. So there's the original photograph right there, and then I'll send you the zoomed in one. So once again, go to #SpacedOutRadio, and you will be able to see the photograph if you want to take a look at it for all you Twitter listeners. And I know they'll be sharing elsewhere too. So, and I'll send you the zoomed in version here. So when you get a photograph, and this photograph was taken by a very skeptical person who didn't even want to go on the tour. And she was dragged to the tour by a friend of hers who watched all the paranormal shows. And it was just phenomenal that she was able to capture this. So what it is for our listeners, it's taken in the second floor of an old barn. And the photograph is of a man, and there's something behind him that we just don't know. And his arm is actually holding onto the railing like he's pulling himself up. There was nobody there at that time. To me, it's the best photograph I've ever seen of a ghost.
Wow. Yeah, I'm waiting for it to load. Did you post it? Is it?
Yeah, it's on your Twitter right now.
It is.
Yes. The power of photography and Twitter at the same time. I love it. So, once again, if you're listening, you can go to #SpacedOutRadio on Twitter and check it out. I believe our Facebook crew already has those photos because they've seen them. Most of the people here who are in our chat rooms have seen these photos numerous times. numerous times.
When I don't know what I'm trying to find it, and I don't see it. And is it in my private messages, or is it...
Oh hell! No, I didn't send it to your private. I'll just text them to you. How about that?
Oh,
how about that?
Sorry,
because I do have.
Twitter. I'm not on my phone. I'm on the computer.
Ah, that's all right. I'll text them to you. So when people are, sometimes we see the amateur people who are not really pushing for anything to actually happen. They're not expecting anything to happen. Do you believe that they even know what they've caught, even though to the amateur it might not be anything special?
Well, I think that's an interesting thing to think about, is like not even trying to get it, and then you get it. Then those are the people who get the picture. So maybe there's something to that, because I do think consciousness plays into photography for sure. Yeah, and then sometimes I think oftentimes it'll be like, there will be an easy explanation for things, and maybe people are really reading into it. It's a slippery slope, right?
There's your phone. That's the main photo right there, and I'll send you the zoomed in photo here.
Okay.
Momentarily. So that way you can break it down for us.
Oh, wow. That's really creepy.
Creepy, eh? Creepy.
Yeah. It's very creepy.
Mm-hmm.
That is really spooky.
Yes.
I don't know what that is.
I know. You see the man. Okay, so if you bring in the photo, you see the man on the stairwell, and then there is whatever it is behind him. That man on the stairwell is not actually there. And then we don't know what's following him up the stairs. Now, the guy below the stairwell, you can see his head in black. He's walking around. We pretty much know who that is.
Yeah.
Freaky.
Wow.
Freaky.
Yeah, it is. It also almost looks like a mask, so it's extra spooky.
I know. That's the weird part.
Wow. Yeah, wow. That is really spooky. I have no explanation for that. Somebody who is a skeptic might say somebody was walking up the stairs and it's just a blurry version of them. But it looks, that's a very scary image. I agree. That's weird.
You can hold on to that one for your collection.
Thank you.
Show that one off.
I like good photos like that. Yeah.
Show that one off.
Yeah, because I do get I sometimes get people all the time sending me pictures, and some of them aren't that exciting, but that one is.
Yeah, that one just seems to blow the socks off of me. That's for sure. It really did. And, that photograph, believe it or not, they actually put it in our local newspaper. And that photograph actually swamped us since then on our tours. Like, normally we'd get like 17 to 20 people. Now we're getting like 25 to 35 a tour, which is good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And has anybody gotten anything as good since, or anything close?
You know what? We got one that, pareidolia speaking, it could be him again, but in a different part of the barn. And we also got what looks to be a woman's face or an alien face in a window in another building. So we're just starting to collect. The main thing is, now that people have seen the weird photo, they are now taking more pictures. So with more pictures comes more opportunity of seeing things.
Right. Interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, for sure.
Pretty cool.
For sure. So when you're out taking these photographs of entities, what's your favorite type of reaction on a photo that you get when you show people or even show yourself for the first time? Has anything just absolutely amazed you and blew you out of the water, much like this photo did?
Yeah, there's one photo in particular I'm thinking of where there's a medium that I've photographed quite a bit, and she went into trance. We were in a room with an open window, and she started doing she called it trance dancing. So she was like dancing and talking to the spirits. And I took a picture, and it looks like there's actually like a mask of light built off of her face that looks like it could be a Native American person or one of her, and one of her spirit guides is Native American, and it looks like this light mask that's just built right off of her face. And I can text that to you. And when I took that picture, I was taken aback by how strange it was. And then I was working with a curator who was doing a show about paranormal, like the occult and art. And she was looking through my images and trying to decide what she wanted to put in the show. And she saw that picture, and I said, well, what about this one? And she said, no, that's too real. It's too spooky to put in the show, which I thought was funny because she was curating a show about paranormal work. But yeah, so. And, I don't know how I made the picture, and I don't really understand why it looks the exact way it does, but it was one of the most realistic images I've ever gotten. I'm going to send it to you right now. Yeah, so sometimes they really, especially too, like the situation I mentioned earlier where the man looked like his grandfather in the trance picture. I'll send you that too. That they really did creep me out because I was so shocked by them. Their results I was not expecting. Those shocked me the most. Yeah.
I'm looking at the lady here, and it looks like there is a ghost face on top of her face.
Yeah, and you see her face is very sharp, like her flesh. You can see her flesh kind of break into the light face. I guess we should post these for the listeners, but these are two of the examples. It's always hard to talk about photography without being able to show pictures at the same time. But
I'm definitely trying right now. Right now on Twitter. You have to go to Twitter to see these, and I know there's a number of you who have Twitter accounts out there, so make sure if you're in one of the chat rooms, I know we got a bunch of people who will help post links, so I would appreciate that, because me being a one-man system here, old Davey could use some help on this. Not gonna lie, Davey could use some help on this. Right, so if you don't mind, I did post the one photo, and hopefully.
But I mean, do you see? Yeah, do you find that image spooky?
I do a little bit. Is that okay? Is that light trickling in on her face from the sunshine, or is that light? Or is she actually being covered up by a spirit there? What is your opinion?
I don't know, but I do think when I look at that picture, it does strike me as kind of crossing a boundary between those two things. It really does make me feel like, oh, something happened here. Now that, like I said, this is really an art project. I'm not trying to create scientific evidence because I believe photography is too slippery of a tool to build scientific evidence in the way I'm using it. So I'm comfortable in this being possible spirit art, blurring that line between art and evidence.
Mm-hmm. we got about 6 minutes here before we have to go to our first break of the night. Are you creating art that is allegedly paranormal then, or are you creating art that you believe is paranormal? Because there is a huge difference between the two, Shannon.
See, I really don't know. I'm not sure how to answer that, because I think that I actually see these images, and specifically the ones that I was just talking about, the ones that kind of blur that line. I see them as relating to the paranormal, but not being paranormal in and of themselves, because paranormal experiences are partially interior, meaning I can photograph somebody getting a message from a medium, and I can't be part of that experience because most of it is it's the overlap between subjective and objective reality that really makes things paranormal. So the paranormal is personal. The paranormal is distinctive and singular. And what I'm doing is kind of something that resonates with the experience, or is another type of experience, or is kind of to the left of it, if this makes sense. It relates, but it's not the actual thing, because the actual thing takes part inside of you. If that makes sense. I hope it does.
So basically what you're saying is you're taking the photograph and then you're letting everybody else kind of judge the opinion. Their opinion is what they see. You know what you photograph. So when you go in and you take this photograph of something that is anomalous, you are then basically saying, okay, I'm zipping it up because my opinion doesn't matter. You tell me what you see, and what you see as a viewer of the photograph is right for you. So there is no wrong decision.
Yes. And I think this is, and all of this is part of why the photographic experience is such an interesting one, is because it needs to be interpreted. Photographs live by interpretation. They become meaningful or powerful because of the way you interpret them, irregardless of the paranormal aspect. And then when you double it with the paranormal, I think it becomes really interesting.
Mm-hmm. How has your personal belief system grown since you started focusing on this project? Do you find that all of a sudden you're photographing things that are more anomalous? Do you find that you are being approached more by whatever it is on the other side? Or is it still the same where, out of every 100 pictures, you may get one or two with things you can't explain?
Well, I do think the more I work on the project, I've found the right people to work with. I do feel like there's a rhythm there. I have had a lot of really powerful experiences along the way, but I've also had some really silly and ridiculous experiences along the way, and some experience I would deem as not authentic. So it's been a mix of things. But as I move into the work, and I've really put myself out there by taking mediumship classes, and I've had readings and healings, and I've pretty much done everything a spiritualist would do. The only difference is I'm bringing my camera with me. And as I've done that, I've also, I think my own intuition has grown. I have had some unexpected moments where I've been forced to try to give somebody a message and it actually makes sense, even though I'm not a medium. So it's been a really interesting journey in that way. And I do see mediumship as a practice that human beings do and have done since the beginning of time, and that every culture has had the mediumistic practices. It's just not always, it's less common in our modern Western society than it was in others, or even in other parts of the world. But I've learned that it's a thing that humans have done over time and in many different areas of the world. So that knowledge makes me even more interested in the practice as well.
We have about 1 minute before we have to go to break. When you are allowing yourself to experience this, has it changed you spiritually in regards to what you believe personally? Because now that you're recognizing the symbols and the signals of what we all deem as paranormal energy, do you find you're picking it up more and now know when and where to pick up and shoot your camera?
Yes, but I'm always also constantly in a state of questioning. Sometimes I like to say it depends on the day what I believe. You'd have to ask me. Certain days I change my mind about exactly what I think is going on. But I try to really stay on that line of like questioning. Very much I try to keep with the Fortean, like a Fortean lens, which means, I'm constantly in a state of questioning myself, the people I'm working with, the situations I'm in, the experiences I'm having. And staying in that state of questioning, I think, has been healthy for me. Meaning, like, even when I see something that's completely convincing, I kind of really try to tear it apart and question it a lot.
All right, Shannon, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. Shannon Taggart is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Paranormal photography, seances, and so much more. Coming up in one more hour with Shannon in hour number 3. We are going to open up the phone lines as well to you. We'll give you that number later on in the show. Shannon's website, shannontaggart.com. That's TAGGART.com. And her new book coming out very soon is Seance. Come check it out. We'll be back for hour number 2 right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Julia Sellers is going to join us. We are going to be talking about out-of-body experiences as well as different multi-dimensions. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network, including the Fringe.fm. We are also live on Periscope.tv if you want to check it out as well. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Exerabros. Exerabros is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here at the mighty SOR. Now, you can also check out our archives. We're on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. I would appreciate that if you don't mind. That way we can rack up some numbers there. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight we are talking with paranormal photographer Shannon Taggart. Her website, shannontaggart.com. She has a new book coming out very, very soon called Seance. And it's such a pleasure to have her, because one of the things, Shannon, as we bring you on back here, that a lot of people try and figure out is these anomalies that we catch on photographs, whether it's with our smartphones, whether it's with cameras, whether it's with video cameras like GoPros. Out of all the footage that you have, and I'm sure you've looked at a lot of photos where you have caught anomalous features, how many of them do you try to explain with logical thinking, if we can put it that way?
Well, I always try to explain all of them with logical thinking, but then I also layer that with, how it correlates to the invisible experience. So, meaning I'll, if I say, I know this is a long exposure, but this is exactly what the medium said was happening, and that's what I see in the picture, and then it becomes meaningful for me. So I don't shy away from the technical explanation at all. I take a more of a both and kind of look at things.
So you do try and keep your skeptical hat and your skeptical eyes going, because, the last thing that you want to do, if I'm correct, is have your own personal credibility questioned in regards to this. Because, let's face it, there are a lot of people out here in this field, people who are watching from the outside. They want logical explanations, and no matter what it is, even if an alien was standing right in front of them, they wouldn't believe it.
Right. And I also just, you're always going to get arguments. I think it's, from people debunking things. So I just think it's more interesting to embrace the ambiguity of it and see them as maybe it's both. Maybe it's a technical, there's a technical explanation, and then it's also a meaningful picture. Yeah, that's kind of like the way I like to look at things or take it.
Do people question you on your work, maybe wondering if you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes?
Well, I do meet people who will say, sometimes I meet spiritualists or, certain spiritualists will say, why are you doing this if you're not trying to create evidence? Or they think the whole pursuit of using a camera should only be for evidence. And they don't understand. They act like I'm wasting my time. And, that's their opinion, and I don't try to argue with them. A lot of people still, I'm kind of amazed at how many people still think of photography as an objective tool when, myself being a photographer and somebody who's thought about and studied photography for a very long time now, I really see it as as more of an art and as almost a trickster type medium, which, it can do multiple things at once. And once you embrace that and understand that about photography, it actually becomes much more interesting. But there are people who say seeing is believing, and they really want, the straightforward kind of evidential approach, which I just don't see photography in that way.
So do you shy away then from paranormal investigation?
Like I said, I like it in a spiritualist setting, but I don't shy away from it, but I don't think sometimes I'm there doing maybe with the same intention as some of the people there are. But I do think there's something to be said about being in a group energy where people are really looking and trying to see and really trying to discover something and trying to document things. I do like that group energy and the thought of there's something is possible here. And I think that's a huge aspect of the paranormal also, being in these group settings where everybody's trying to focus on the same thing at once. But I think maybe sometimes I have different intentions than some of the people there, meaning they're really looking for evidence to create solid evidence.
So you feel there is a little bit of a conflict with some of these paranormal groups who don't fully understand that you're allowed to come at this in a different category and for different reasoning than them.
Yeah, and I mean, not everybody is into, art or, in this field especially, they really don't get the artistic links to the paranormal. And I think that the artists who study and look at the paranormal have just as much to say about it as the scientists who do. And unfortunately, there's not that much of a conversation surrounding the paranormal and art. It's more focused on the science or the scientific or the science-y stuff, I wish there was more of a dialogue, really, with people who are using the paranormal and art.
I don't think a lot of people see it as art, though, and that's probably the biggest argument that you're going to have or currently have on a daily basis in regards to this, because, let's face it, there's a lot of people out there, Shannon, who take this field very seriously, probably some overly seriously, and like you said, they don't understand that there are different realms to this entire situation where you're allowed to expand into it. They may not look at it as art. They are trying to, as you say, look at it as evidence. So what you are doing in regards to this is you're bringing that spiritual aspect into artistry, and you're getting flack for that. Not from everybody, but from some people.
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. But then I also get people who just love the images. And I'm very much trying to not only do like an ethnographic project or a documentary project about spiritualism, I'm also, and talk about the paranormal and cross that line between art and evidence, but I'm also trying to make pictures that you want to look at. I'm also trying to make them visually interesting so that regardless, you want to look at them too. So I find it really challenging to do that, and that's my goal, to try and draw you in with a visual that is interesting on top of being confusing and ambiguous and crossing a line, and also telling a story and giving information. That's really my goal, to do all of that.
So what has been the majority of response that you have received from your work? Because you've been published in Time and other magazines. These are big, big companies that are really looking at your work and taking it seriously. In 2015, for example, Time magazine did run a retrospective on my work, which was really exciting. And the interviewer really, I was very impressed with the tone, because she was really willing to grapple with some of this confusion and the ambiguity and the both and the maybe it is, maybe it isn't kind of aspect of the project. And that, I think, is a newer thing. I think nowadays people are more willing to grapple with that than they were maybe early on in my project when I first started getting it published in maybe 2005, So, that's been really exciting. At the same time, for example, there was a feature about me on the site Boing Boing. Somebody wrote a profile of me, and there were some images accompanying it, and I was really happy with the article, but the comments were just like, oh my God, why would you publish such a thing? This is such crap, give me a break. I think the title of the article was The Woman Who Shoots Ghosts. But anyway, the
list of captures, and some of the comments at time were really not positive too, and very, like, people were very offended by it. But the fact that publications are willing to put it out there and grapple with it in a sophisticated way has been really, really exciting for me.
I got a question coming in from our SOR Space Travelers from Ron. He's in Saskatchewan, Canada, so you could probably see him from where you are because it's so flat up there. So, Ron, make sure you're waving. Wave east. East, Ron. Ron is asking, have you ever taken an image that's ever caused any side effects or attachment issues to yourself?
I've been getting this question quite a bit, and so meaning, like, some people phrase it as, like, what do you do for protection and this, and so I should explain that in spiritualism, they really do not focus on, or they don't even, it's not part of their belief system to think that things can get attached to you, meaning that when they go into their seances, into their readings, when they begin anything, they do a prayer of protection and healing by setting their intentions. And then after the act is done, after the seance is done, after the message is done, after the reading is done, they close it and they say a prayer thanking for the protection, and they only request the highest and the best. I've asked spiritualists to explain to me, how do I answer this question? People are asking me about attachment and protection. And the way it's described is that the medium attunes to a higher energy, and their intent is for only higher communication that's safe and positive. And spiritualists believe that that's what they get, and it's because they're attuning their energy to such, and that they're opening and closing with prayers. And I'm always in those situations where it's open and closed with prayers, and I'm following the protocol of the spiritualist circle. So it's kind of embedded in the system to kind of keep a safe space from things like that. And so I really never have had a bad experience in that way.
So you don't practice any sort of protection, you're not saging yourself, you're not using Palo Santo wood, prayer, or anything, maybe to protect yourself or anything like that?
No, I'm just going with what the spiritualists do, which they do it in their mindset, in their intention, with their prayers before and after. I like to keep myself grounded. I try to do a lot of physical exercise and stuff just to keep my head from getting too out there. But no, I just go along with what the spiritualists do in the situation, and so I kind of follow their lead on this topic, which is and they also, spiritualists also believe that, like, things that you believe in get power and take over, and so they just completely dismiss and do not believe that in their work they're going to get any of this because of their intentions. Now, you can disagree with that, but I'm just reporting on what I'm told by the mediums.
Do you then feel that you are attracting the spirits to you that maybe want the attention and want to be seen on any type of photography? Because let's face it, they will, no matter what time period they're from in the last couple hundred years, will know what a camera is.
Yeah, but it's not just about what I'm attracting in my project. It's kind of unique in the sense that everything is collaborative. So, I'm in these situations and I'm working with a medium who has, like, a spirit team, and they're talking to a specific spirit, and maybe my energy is part of it, but it's also collaborative. And, some might say, I'm simply just doing art photography and there's no paranormal aspects to it at all. Some people might say, oh my gosh, you are documenting everything and it's your energy combined with them. Like I said, I'm not really clear on exactly what is going on when I'm photographing these situations. Sometimes I have different feelings about it.
What are those different feelings?
Well, sometimes I really convinced something really crazy happened. And then, other times I can look at the same image and go, oh, no, maybe not. Maybe this is just, this is just a pretty picture and there's nothing really going on. I'm just, sometimes you have a reading and it doesn't really feel powerful until 2 years later, and then you remember what they said and you're like, oh my God, and suddenly it takes on new meaning. So I feel like time and your state of mind plays into the whole thing as well. I think that's very paranormal too, for time and interpretation to change, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I want to start moving over to your book Seance here, because pretty soon it's going to be out for publication where people can purchase it. Please tell us a little bit about your book Seance.
So my book Seance is going to compile. It's going to be a broad edit of all this work that all the photographs I've taken over 17 years, and this includes, I've traveled all over the world photographing mediums. I spent a lot of time in Lilydale, the world's largest spiritualist community, and at Arthur Findlay College, which is a spiritualist learning center. It's like a psychic college in England. And it's basically going to compile that, some writing from me, some of my personal stories. And then the foreword will be written by Dan Aykroyd of Ghostbusters fame, who is actually a fourth-generation spiritualist, which not a lot of people know. And then there's some other awesome people contributing essays, too, including the artist Tony Ausler, who has like a huge paranormal collection. I don't know if you've seen that, but it was on his paranormal collection was actually on display at the Museum of Modern Art here in New York 2 years ago. So there's going to be some writing and then my pictures and my personal story, and I think it's going to be a very unique book. I really do, and full color, and it's going to have some of the historical stuff and some of the images I mentioned, where I discovered about the spiritualist photo history, because I'm definitely building off of this spiritualist photographic history, which is one of the wackiest moments within the history of photography. I mean, some of those pictures are really, truly unbelievable. So I definitely see myself as writing a next chapter on the spiritualist, the dialogue between spiritualism and photography.
How did you get Dan Aykroyd involved in this?
It was a total coincidence. He was actually in Lilydale, which is, the town where I photograph, with his family. And it turned out somebody put us in touch with each other, and he ended up, he bought one of my images for his collection, and then, we met and he saw the work and he offered to write the foreword, which was like extremely exciting. And I'm just a huge fan of his. And also I find he's so interesting because he really did bring some of the spiritualist terminology, especially the term ectoplasm, into popular culture, through his comedy, which is, that's a really interesting thing. Like I'll say to people, working on this project, and this religion has this mysterious substance called ectoplasm. You may have heard of it through Ghostbusters. That's kind of like one of my ins to people to explain.
That is a lucky break. Absolute lucky break. Must know you're on the right path when somebody famous picks up your work like that and is like, do you mind if I do this for you? Do you mind?
It was very cool. He's such a really awesome person. I was very excited that he was willing to to do that. I think he's very interested in the topic of art and the paranormal. He told me that. So it must be, he appreciates the artistic perspective. And so that was really exciting that he got what I was doing.
Well, he's a good Canadian kid, too, and his father was a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for a long time as well. So, you know, good on him for doing that, and especially being an experiencer himself of the paranormal and especially ufological and aliens. I mean, he's one of the only actors that has actually came out and said, I've had some very strange experiences, and hasn't been ridiculed for it.
Right. I think it's because he's so genuine and sincere, and also he's really funny. So I think funny people can get away with a lot too. He's really hilarious. But yeah, it is cool how people just seem to respect his opinion as, you know, his experience. Like I never hear anybody say, "Oh yeah, well, Dan Aykroyd believes in aliens." They always sound like really interested in that aspect of him. And maybe it's too because they know the other side, the really hilarious, funny actor, artist side. But
Leo,
yeah, he's a really interesting person.
Leo in Periscope is wondering, which image did he buy from you?
Oh, it was actually a really straightforward picture. It's not even on my site. It was just of a medium giving a message in her reading room. And she has her eyes closed, and she's, it's like a pretty intense physical stance, but it was a really straightforward one. It wasn't one of the spookier, like the weirder ones. It was just a really, like a very sincere picture of a medium giving a message.
Have you ever had your own reading done while you're taking the photographs?
Yes, many times. Many times. I've had lots.
What's that like? What's that like, getting a reading while you are shooting a camera at the same time?
It's actually not my favorite way to get a reading because there's too much going on. It's hard to concentrate. I feel like the best way to get a reading is to be in a peaceful, focused state of mind and really listen and really be present with the medium while it's happening. So I really don't like to do it that way, but it has happened that way. I like to I like to photograph other people having experiences getting the readings, if I'm going to photograph that type of mediumship. And then when I get my own readings, I like to fully focus on it.
So with the book Seance, take us through what people are going to see if they decide to make the financial commitment and go to the bookstore and pick this up, or go online and pick it up.
Well, they're going to see there's a teaser of what they will see on my website, which is shannontaggart.com. But there will be hundreds of full-color pictures with full titles. It would kind of be a compendium of everything I've photographed and experienced on this project during this epic kind of tour of spiritualism. And I mean, it'll be an art book, but it'll also be informational too. And I'm just like incredibly excited about it. I think it's going to be, like I said, a really unique book. I really don't think there's going to be anything like it out there. I'm also going to have a glossary, illustrated glossary of spiritualist terms with, defining terms like transfiguration and spirit trumpets and the medium's cabinet. And that's going to be, I promise that will be a fun read too, and that'll be inserted within the book.
All right. Let's get into seances, though, because this is something that you work closely with. There are a number of different ways to create a seance. How many have you sat through?
Oh, gosh, a lot. I don't know, possibly hundreds. It's probably too many to count. And, I have to say, so my project really spans the gamut, and there's two different camps within spiritualism. There's one camp that believes the way forward with mediumship and spiritualism and how we heal grief and prove that there's life after death should be purely through clairvoyant mediumship. So that's the type of mediumship you see on the popular television shows like John Edwards and Long Island Medium, where it's just white rooms and bright lights and candles and people just talking, and there's nothing dark and spooky, and there's no seance going around, and that's the way we should move forward. And then there's other people within spiritualism who say, no, seances and these practices of sitting in the dark room have been around since the beginning of spiritualism, so we need to keep them and continue them. And so it's a controversial. It depends on the spiritualists you meet, what they think. Some people believe the clairvoyant stuff should be the main focus, but we should have a little bit of seances, and there's many different types of seances too. Do you want me to go into and describe some of those?
Yeah, that would be great.
So sometimes mediums they'll do a message circle, and they'll say, or a seance circle, and that'll just be when you sit in the dark in a relaxed state in a circle, and people give messages to each other. And there's nothing really different about that other than the fact that you're in a dark room with each other. And then there could be table tipping seances where you turn off the lights and you put your hands on a table and you try to get it going. And then there's situations which are better described as physical mediumship seances, where there's a cabinet that's built and the medium sits in this cabinet. It's like a little stage, and it's either red light or complete darkness. And in these situations, you're all sitting around this medium in a cabinet, and you're focusing on that medium, and that medium could go into trance and just talk, or could try to make trumpets fly around the room, or could try and produce ectoplasmic manifestations. I mean, it really spans the gamut. And transfiguration is something they sit for, which is when the medium sits under a red light and you watch their faces and you try to see if it morphs or changes. So there's really a lot of very performative seances that get really, some of them are very unusual. But it really spans the gamut, and it depends on who the medium is and where you are. Depends on what you'll get, yeah.
So when people sit around for this seance, how many people are usually in attendance for this to happen? And for those of us who have never sat in on a seance, what could we expect?
So usually I would say there's never more than 20 people. And like I said, it depends on where you go what to expect. Here in New York City, there's a spiritualist church that does they advertise, okay, there's a seance every day or every time after church, and that's simply just a message service. Like I said, they just turn off the lights, but everybody gets clairvoyant messages. Now, you could also go to ones where there'll be a medium who travels into town and sets up a cabinet, and you pay, and they do these fantastical feats like they make gemstones appear out of their mouths and have trumpets flying and talk in a trance state and try and tell you that they're going to produce ectoplasm. You can have that too, or you can have these home circles. They're called home circles, which are seances that happen in people's homes regularly. And in those, it's a bunch of friends sitting around and trying to go into meditation and see what happens, and kind of experiment with mediumship. So, it depends on where you go and what you're looking for, what you're going to discover if you go to a seance.
Well, it's very interesting because, a lot of times we don't know if we're trying to connect with somebody or raise tables, or if there's going to be channeling through people or not. There is always something different going along with it, isn't there?
Yeah, and I don't know. Some of them get into this like party atmosphere, which can be really interesting, especially like the table tipping stuff or the they don't really use Ouija boards or anything like that. Or like if you bring technology into the room, like some people will record for EVP, which is electronic voice phenomena. Have you done shows about EVP?
Yes, we have. They're fun.
Okay, yes. Yeah. So that can be incorporated into a seance situation as well. But then there can be some of them are very quiet and serious, and some are like raucous, almost like a party. And there's lots of like pop music used. Like a lot of the mediums who go into trance use they'll have their CD of pop music like playing, like blaring while they go into trance, or like at certain points they'll like put a song on and turn it up and ask you to sing along with it. So some of them are really like very raucous parties or joyous parties.
I've never seen that type of situation happen. Usually it's all about candles and silence and not a big, hoodoo or voodoo type party where we're, or concert type atmosphere where we're cranking up the music to see what happens. That intrigues me, but I can see where the music would help out with creating the energy from whatever else is on the other side and attracting it.
Yeah. They always say music raises the vibration, so it's pretty common in seances to have music and music playing. And then there's some mediums they try, or they say it's just happening that they're getting celebrities spirits of celebrities who come into the room. And some of the popular ones are like Freddie Mercury from the band Queen, and Michael Jackson lately, and Louis Armstrong. Those are spirits that many mediums say come into their seances, so then they'll play their music and as part of the whole experience.
Do you buy into that? Do you believe that is actually happening, that Freddie Mercury or Michael Jackson are coming on in to these realms to communicate with people that they don't know, even if they are just fans? The whole celebrity in the seance room topic is something that I'm really fascinated with, and I'm trying to delve deeper into. I was just recently actually in a seance room in England where they have the whole entire room was covered in pictures of celebrities, like hand-drawn pictures of people who had visited the seance room, they said, or they were wanting to talk to. I think there's like the whole celebrity coming back from the dead thing. You see it in culture a lot. I mean, even like Michael Jackson, there's a lot of talk in the media, if you Google, about his ghost or his spirit appearing or coming to people. Even the guy who was responsible for his death, Conrad Murray, has long statements about experiencing the spirit of Michael Jackson. So I think that whole topic, I'm not sure what to make of it, but I think it extends beyond the seance room into culture. So that's why I'm so fascinated with it. Yeah, and I'm hoping to maybe expand that topic a little bit for the book. It's a big one, I think. I get that, and I can appreciate that, but I know there's a lot of people out there who have troubles with psychics who claim they are communicating with dead celebrities like that. You know, because a lot of people will try to make a buck off of that. I mean, we see it in the paranormal field with a gentleman named Steve Huff who claims to get contact and puts it on YouTube, gets thousands of hits. Every time there's a new dead popular celebrity, he's throwing something on there. Do you really watch with who you work with to make sure that, you know, they aren't people who are looking for clicks or looking to make a buck off of this, rather than people who are trying to have a genuine interest with communicating with said famous people?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. And yes, well, the seance room I was talking about specifically with the celebrities, that's a private seance room, and nobody really, I mean, it's it's in a home, and the mediums are just basically doing it for themselves or people they invite in their homes, into their home. So that's, you know, that's interesting. They're definitely not making money off of it. Are they getting attention from it or seeking attention from it? I mean, that's a question. But as far as like the physical mediums who claim that they're in touch with celebrities, some of them travel around, and maybe that's part of the draw, is like that people know they're going to bring through Louis Armstrong. And I've actually met mediums who fight with each other over who, like, oh, well, Louis Armstrong only comes to my seance. And, you know, then it gets to like a level of absurdity that is just, you know, it's just too much, you know, like these physical mediums fighting over who's really talking to Louis Armstrong. But I think all of that is, I mean, all of these questions that we're raising surrounding the celebrities is a big part of paranormal. It's like, are people doing things for money? Are they doing it for attention? Is it a lie? Is it true? I don't know. It's a big can of worms, the whole celebrity thing. I just want to ask you a question. Steve Huff, is he the one who has Huff Paranormal? Does he make all those apps?
Yeah,
is that the same person?
Yeah, that's the same person.
Okay. I wasn't aware that he was doing that. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, it's on his YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in the community that have issue with that.
Yeah, and I completely understand that too. And one thing I want to say about my project, and I actually just ran into this problem recently, where I was in a class and the teacher didn't want to even look at my work because I had photographed a medium that he deemed was a complete and utter fake. And what I'm trying to do in this project is not level judgment on who's doing what or what's true or what's false. Part of it is just documenting the fact that it's happening. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, and my work is not going to weigh in on what's exactly going on with the celebrities. It's just going to document that this is happening and this is happening in this private house. With this, and this medium says they're channeling this person. I have this reporter aspect to the project, you know, and especially with some of the mediums, like the very controversial ones. You know, I'm going to the seance and documenting what they're doing because it's part of contemporary spiritualism, but I'm just letting the picture speak for themselves.
Have you ever had any experiences physically from spirit or anything else since you've started photographing these seances? Your camera moved, your hair tugged, pushed on the shoulder, anything along those lines?
I was in one seance with a physical medium, and there was like, we were sitting and I felt it was as if somebody came up to me and was standing in front of me. And it was in complete darkness, and I said, oh gosh, he got out of the cabinet. Oh my God, this guy is like walking in the room out of the cabinet. And as soon as I thought that, the presence moved to my right and then behind me, and I felt like I was getting a healing. And that was an impossible move because I was sitting against a wall, so it was as if the presence, like, moved through a wall in order to do that. And so that really scared me. And then after the seance, we had been filming in infrared, and I asked to see the tape, and I watched the whole tape, and the medium never left the cabinet. So I don't know what I felt. I really did feel like there was somebody standing with me and then putting their hands over my head to give me a healing. But I don't know what happened. I don't know if I hallucinated that. I don't know if that was a hypnotic effect from sitting in the dark and having suggestions. But that's one incident I can think of where something physical happened.
Have you ever tried your photography at any other type of cryptid? Say Bigfoot, say fairies, or even UFOs?
No, I have not. And I actually was interested in the whole topic of fairies, especially because I was learning that in Iceland that the road crews will actually build roads around where people say that there's fairy houses. They'll actually do, urban planning around fairy spots or where there's fairy lore. And I thought that was really interesting because you're seeing myth play into reality in a very profound way by city planning around fairy areas. And I was really interested in the topic. And it's funny because my husband was like, "Oh, you shouldn't do that topic. Don't mess with the fairies." You don't want to do that because it's dangerous. But yeah, I am interested in the topic of fairies. Again, it's another project where you're photographing invisible things. So I don't even know how I could really do it other than document the spaces they're said to live. So yeah, but it's something I'm interested in. The UFOs that's harder because it seems like experiences are random. And, I don't know if I could go out and seek them, although I do know that there's orb photographers who claim when they get orbs, they get UFOs too. So who knows?
I never took the fairies for being that bad. The gnomes.
Oh, they're tricksters, right?
The gnomes, on the other hand, they can, garden gnomes, ceramic gnomes, I don't care what it is. They could all go to hell in a handbasket for all I'm concerned. Those things freak me out. But the fairies, they're nice.
Yeah.
They're nice. Look at Tinkerbell. How can you ever go wrong with Tinkerbell?
No, I think there's some dark aspects to the fairy folklore, right? Yeah.
I mean, there is
both,
for everything.
Right?
I think there is for everything. Just don't piss them off. But them garden gnomes, they're just they're just weird.
Well, yeah, I think that's was his point. Don't mess with their land or their area. They might get mad at you.
Yeah, you're talking to a guy who has a giant fairy garden in his backyard. Actually, it's weird because I didn't even know what it was until we moved in there. I said, "What's all that dense natural area back there? Why would they cut off a piece of the backyard?" And, "Oh, that's a fairy garden." Apparently, it's the thing to do up here since they developed this area in the early to mid 70s.
Oh wow! So there's that's interesting. So do you have any stories about that? Did you have any fairy experiences or?
Not me. My daughter. My daughter has. She hasn't had them for a while.
That makes sense.
Yeah, she would go right in the back there in the middle of the night, with the bears and the cougars roaming around, and she would just go sit back there and yeah, I should have never mentioned gnomes. Damn it! Now I'm going to get hammered with gnomes and pictures of gnomes and comments of gnomes, and here it comes. But she would go back there and meditate, and literally she would say, that she would get fairies landing on her arms and her legs as she sat cross-legged, so it would be very, very intriguing.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I think also too it's common for young women to have those experiences. I think more there's a correlation there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. And one of the first nights we actually moved into this house, and we're here almost 3 years now, she actually had them tapping at her window, trying to get her attention. Purple ones, pink ones, white ones, blue, orange, peach, all sorts. She's had quite the experience, that's for sure.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, the fairy folk. That is for sure. That is totally for sure. Is there anything, as time starts to wind down, because we only got you for about another 6 minutes here, is there anything that you want to branch off into, or where do you see taking your work onto the next level?
Well, right now I'm really focused on getting the book out and making the book as as good as I possibly can, and that's, all the photography is done now. It's just editing and laying it out, and then adding the text. So that's it. I'm at an exciting point, but also a crucial point. But after that, I'm really unsure. I have a couple of projects started. One of which is kind of about Marian apparitions that, I might pursue. There's also, I'm very interested in the whole celebrity afterlife thing, which is another project I've been working on. I mean, more so than what I talked about, not just with spiritualism, but just celebrity after death kind of phenomena. And then, other than that, I did do a project. I photographed voodoo ceremonies in Brooklyn for, I think, almost 5 years. And I've never done anything with that work, and it's possible that I might do some writing and maybe get that out. I'm not sure. I have a lot of, right now I'm just focused on this one, but I have a lot of things that are brewing.
It's exciting times to be able to create your own career like this, because I'm pretty sure this wasn't the career path you decided to choose. Any regrets?
No, I mean, it's good I learned to early on, and I think I said this when we were talking about my career first, like I do wear two hats. So I try to keep them separate. And I actually think that's the best way for me to work and be in the world, is to do my really straightforward, more commercial, more corporate work, and then have my, my paranormal art projects as separate things.
Well, that makes life very interesting indeed. Now, do you plan on making your books a series? Because there's so many different directions that you can go with this, with your pictures really discussing the storylines.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll see how the book does, because actually I was just talking about this with a friend, is that I really have hundreds of images, and I could go, if the book is popular and people want to see more of it, I definitely have books within the project. My book Seance will be kind of a survey of the work, like an overview of the very best images and like little bits of everything. But, there's mediums I've been photographing for like 8 years, over and over and over again. There's one medium in particular, I could make a whole book just on her. So, yeah, I mean, if the book does well, I definitely have the content to do, to expand the project and go out into it in other ways. So that would be exciting too. We'll have to see how it's received.
Do you see this being kind of an enlightening type of book where people can actually look at your images and be able to maybe tell the story through the ghosts or whatever anomalies you catch through? Maybe make some more believers out of people?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing, my ultimate goal, or like the goal I would think is most at the heart of the project, is to help engage people with some mystery. and not just the mystery of mediumship, but the mystery of photography. I very much see this project not only about spiritualism, but it is about the photographic process itself and questioning the conjuring powers of photography, and what that means, so there is this reflexive play there. So if I can bring somebody to have a mysterious experience or kind of consider mediumship or spiritualism or just the act of photographing in a different way, then I've been successful. I really would love to give people a mysterious experience. That would be my ultimate goal.
Sounds absolutely wonderful. We're down to our final minute with you tonight. I would love it if you could describe what people will see on your website, shannontaggart.com, and also give a rundown of when you believe your book is going to be out for the public to pick up.
Great. Yeah. So at my website, you will see samples of the book content. If you want to read more, there's a lot of press that I've done about the book, like the Time magazine link, a number of interviews. There's a teaser video. There's several videos of me talking about the work, and some links to my other projects. And the book is going into production shortly, so I'm thinking and hoping a fall 2019 release will be a reality, and there's a link to the book pre-sale is at my website too. So there's tons of material up at the site to explore.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight, Shannon. Really appreciate you taking the time, and good luck with your book and your venture of paranormal photography.
Thanks so much. I had a great time talking with you, Dave. Thanks.
Wonderful. Coming up in hour number 3, we're going to open up the phone lines to you. We want to know your weirdest, your strangest paranormal experiences. Bring them to the table. 1-702-302-4556. I'll begin taking calls right after the break. 1-702-302-4556. We'll be back right after this. Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on spacedoutradio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you're seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at spacedoutradio.com.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. Tomorrow night on the program, we have Julia Sellers coming in. She will be talking about out-of-body experiences. And she will also be talking about multi-dimensions. We're going to get all of it in starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on the Spaced Out Radio Network, as well as, just so you know, we were having some troubles with Periscope tonight. I don't know why, but it just wasn't working. It kept on stalling. I've shut that down for the night, and we're going to do everything this way, the old-fashioned radio way tonight. So, no Periscope. Usually we are on there Monday through Friday. Our YouTube channel, if you want to check out our archives, please hit subscribe. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. I would greatly appreciate that, and you get the free archives as well. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Xerabros. Xerabros is your password for tonight. Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, you can do that. All you do is go to the website. We also have a plethora of features for you on there. Rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read the Encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. We want to say thank you to Shannon Taggart for coming on for the first 2 hours tonight. Her website, shannontaggart.com, where you can learn about her book, Seance, and her paranormal photos are just exquisite. Absolutely exquisite. But we are opening up the phone lines to you here in hour number 3. I want to know about your paranormal experiences. What's freaked you out? What's made you question whether or not this is actually real or not? There's a lot going on here in the paranormal field, and we don't talk a lot of paranormal on this show. At least we haven't for the last few months, due to the fact that we have had a number of UFO stories coming on up. But we're going to go to the phone lines right off the bat here. Area code 805. 805. Who are we speaking with tonight?
Eric with a K Bell.
Hey, Eric with a K. What's going on?
Well, I've been waiting for some stories to come my way, and I've got some stories. So I figured since you said calls are open, I figured I'm going to call Dave and tell some stories.
Excellent, excellent. Are you still schmoozing around all the paranormal and UFO conferences that you can get to?
I'm on the down low until about the 31st of this month, and then I'm going out to the Palm Desert. We're going to go out to see the Integratron and the Giant Rock, and then the UFO. The Contact in the Desert is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. One of those. Anyway, we'll be going to do that next. That's the next big deal going on.
Nice. And your hair's going to look good for that, because it sure was at UFO Con in San Fran.
You know what's funny is I normally wear it very short, and it's just kind of like a military almost short, not quite that short, but for whatever reason, I just kind of let it grow, and I just didn't have time to go get a haircut, and I was kind of shocked that you took a liking to my hair. So now I'm kind of thinking, I'm just going to try to let it grow. It's a little. I cut it since I saw you last, so I'll let it grow. And then I'm gonna do the Giorgio Tsoukalos thing when I get to Contact in the Desert. I'm just gonna blow it out.
Perfect. That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear as well. So that's fantastic. That's fantastic. You're always working on something. UFOs or paranormal, usually UFOs. Give us a paranormal story that's been bothering you.
Well, I don't know if I would classify it as bothering me, but I'll tell you a story that I spent about 3 weeks at Suzanne Ross's house recently, and I don't know, did she tell you about the story? I don't recall, but she was on your show about her experience in Shasta.
She never really got into the Shasta story.
All right, well, I'm going to tell you the story because it's fabulous. You're going to love it. It's right up your alley, literally. So she has a lot of stories, actually, and, you know, they don't just come flowing out every night, but, you know, sometimes we'll be talking, and then, you know how that is. One thing leads another, and you trigger something, and then before you know it, somebody's sharing a story with you that you just weren't expecting to hear. So she told me that her mother and her father moved to Mount Shasta, California, before she was born, and so she was literally born. She even showed me a birth certificate in Mount Shasta, California. And the story goes like this. It was one morning, her sister was 5 years old, getting ready for kindergarten. It was probably about 8 o'clock in the morning, and they lived in Mount Shasta, right near their property, apparently kind of backed up to the mountain where they have their backyard, but then, you know, you can kind of venture into the wilderness. That's not your property technically, but you're allowed to go there. So she was about 3 years old, and as she was telling me the story, one of the questions I said to her is, I said, you know, how far back can you actually remember? And for whatever reason, she has one of those kind of memories. She can go back to like probably 2 or even 1, just really good memory. So anyway, so they had this cat named Lucifer, black cat. It was about the size of 3 normal-sized cats. It was huge, apparently. And so this cat used to, you know, would be strolling around in the backyard, and it would catch lizards and, you know, snakes and birds and, you know, whatever little creatures that it could get its teeth into, and it would bring them into the patio area there and just kind of lay them down. You know how animals do that. They just kind of lay them down on the porch. You got any animals that do that at your house, where they bring in their dead kill and they just lay them on the porch for you?
No, we keep our cats indoors.
Okay. Well, anyway, so she's one morning, she's out there, and here's what she had said prior to this part of the story. So her and her sister used to play in the backyard, and she claimed that she would see, her and her sister both, they had friends that they would play with in the backyard, and this is where you're going to get a kick out of this. There were literally fairies, and whether you want to call them gnomes or trolls, I don't know what they were. I'm not so sure she knew what they were, but she says that she would see them, you know, hiding behind the trees, and she would see the fairies flying around. This wasn't every day, but she had very clear recollection of these events occurring as a child. And so to her, it didn't scare her because she was only 3 years old. She just figured this was just part of reality. So anyway, fast forwarding back to about 8 o'clock in the morning one morning, you know, the cat comes to the door, and this could freak you out a little bit probably. This is a completely true story because Suzanne Ross would not make this up. And Lucifer had about a 1-foot troll in his mouth.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I was like, and when she said that, I said, no, you're not pulling my leg, right? Are you serious? And she said, I'm dead serious. And she said that the cat dropped the little troll onto the porch, and it was twitching, sadly. And so the mom comes up to the door and sees this little troll on the ground, and she starts screaming and freaking out. And so the mom goes into the kitchen, grabs one of those kitchen bags, and scoops the troll up and puts it in the kitchen bag, little trash plastic bag, and takes it out to the backyard and buries this fella. Whether it was a guy or girl, I don't know. I don't know if the trolls are, what are they, unisex, or what are they? Is there like male and female trolls? I mean, are gnomes? I mean, you know better than me.
Don't bring up the gnome word. That's just going to get me in trouble, man. That's just going to get me in trouble.
Well, I'm curious, what is the difference, and I'm not trying to make fun of you, what is the difference between a gnome and a troll? I don't know. I mean, do you know? Do you have a clue on that?
One wears a pointy hat. Okay.
So I don't know if this creature had a pointy hat. I didn't get to ask her that part of it. But anyway, it was interesting because right away my mind goes to, wow, this is like 40 years ago this happened. So my mind goes, yeah, you remember where you live, right? You know the address. If we want to drive back out there, we could find this burial spot, right? She goes, yeah, we probably could. And I thought to myself, well, wouldn't that be I was kind of visualizing in my mind that, you go knock on this door. These people own the house now. They have no idea why I'm knocking on the door. And then I'm trying to think, what kind of story would I have to make up to get somebody to let me go in their backyard and dig something up? Because if there's a troll, let's say, that was in a bag, I don't know if the bones would still be there. You would think the bones would still be there, right?
You would hope so.
You would hope so. So my mind, I'm thinking, if I was going to make up a story, I'd say something like, something about I had a friend that lived here, and she had a diary, and she didn't want her parents to see it, and she buried it in the backyard, but she had a lot of important memories in there, and some little, I have to kind of BS the people a little bit to get them to let me go to the backyard. But wouldn't that be something though, to go back and dig up some bones of a troll? That'd be wild.
I always worry about people who make those claims, and I want to take them seriously. I really do, Eric. But the big problem is, if you have your cat or your dog that it brings home something strange, and then you do nothing with it but make the claim, I have an issue with that. Because,
she's never told the story. Just so you know, she told me that was the first time she'd ever told anybody the story since she was 3 years old. Just so you know. I hear you. I don't doubt you. Go ahead, though. I'm going to shut up. Go ahead.
No, but I guess what I'm saying is, if there's a body there, you could prove something. You get that out onto the weekly news. Okay, you call up the reporter and say, you're not going to believe what my cat dragged in. They're going to do a story on that, and then we can get some scientific person from one of the local universities to check it out. That's how you do it.
When you're 3 years old, though, you got no control. Or 5,
true,
and you got a hysterical mother. I'm guessing. I've met the mom. I've met Suzanne's mom, and she's a different kind of lady. She's a very nice lady, but there's a certain spaced outness to her. When you talk to her, she's almost like in another realm, another dimension. She's there, but it's like you could tell she's elsewhere at the same time. So I don't know, what the whole story is behind that family situation. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting story. I don't know if you found it interesting. I thought it was kind of interesting.
I love stories like that. I just wish that, when people have those scenarios or those situations happen, I just really wish that they would take it to the next level. Don't go to the police, go to the media. Go to your local television crew or your local radio station or newspaper station and just kind of say, hey, we got something here. Let's try and figure this out, what the hell this is. Then you can, all of a sudden, once you get the press, now you can get the universities involved or local scientists involved, and you don't really have to worry about the government, as we all worry about, coming in to try and sweep in and take away our fun packages. You know what I'm saying? Because it's already reported.
Exactly. It seems to me it would be less intimidating, maybe psychologically, if it were a troll as opposed to an alien. I don't know if you think the same way, but you know what I'm saying? If we found a dead alien as opposed to a dead troll, what would be more frightening to somebody?
Probably,
I wonder.
Probably the alien.
Yeah,
probably the alien. You have a dead alien. Let's say your dog brings up a dead gray.
Oh shit.
We would all be kind of freaking out at that time, trying to figure out what to do. Yes, logic says the first thing you should do is probably call the police. But it's going to disappear. And you'll probably get that knock on the door saying, you know what, we're never going to talk about this again.
Exactly.
And that's usually the way it goes. We're never going to talk about this again, are we? And we're not going to go public with it or whatever it may be. That's just the way it seems to work. But if you go to the press first, instead of hitting that panic button, and you go to the press and you say, I've got something here that I think you guys need to have a very, very long look at, it's easy to get things going on the air.
I agree, 100%.
And we don't do enough of that.
Well, let me fast forward to an experience that I had Thursday last week. This might blow your mind a little bit. It kind of blew my mind. It's still a little blown, but what do you do? Most of us that are listening, including, I know you've had experiences. Let me ask you this question first. When you recall your first experience, where as you were in your conscious state, and you're witnessing whether it was a Bigfoot or whatever, UFO, whatever, and you knew as you're looking at this thing that what you're seeing is real. Do you remember that moment where it's like you probably had a paradigm shift in that very moment, I'm going to guess?
Yeah, I remember it absolutely to the T. It was me and my wife. We decided to have a couple of friends over that night. And for some silly reason, I said to my friends, I said, because we have one of those little, those backyard or patio type barbecue or fire pits, that you can just put a couple of pieces of wood on and that's all it really holds, but it's just more for ambiance than anything. So I remember calling up my friends and saying, hey, why don't you come on over? We'll have a fire. We'll have a couple of beers on the patio, and who knows, maybe we'll see some UFOs tonight. Little did I know how real that was going to be that night, because just before 10 o'clock in the evening, we saw this orange rod, like, those cigar-shaped UFOs that everybody says, but there was like silver orbs, so it looked like a dumbbell. All of a sudden, streak across the sky. There was no tail or anything, and we watched it for probably 4 or 5 seconds before it disappeared. And then 20 minutes later, the black triangle appeared over our house, and 3 of us saw it, and it had the same orange rods connected by the silver orbs underneath it. And looking up at that, I remember I was so scared. I was so freaked out by that, because this wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't supposed to exist, Eric. So yes, I remember that moment very, very clearly. That was back in 2013.
Now let's fast forward for a second. But let's go to you don't have to go into detail unless you want to, but the next day and the next day after, because what I'm going to tell you, I've gone through this process based on what I just experienced. And did you try to debunk what you saw in your own mind, or where you thought, I saw this, but I'm not sure I saw it, or did you kind of, you know what I'm saying? Did you kind of vacillate in your own consciousness as to, was that really real, or were you just flat out knew it was real and you just accepted it immediately?
Oh, we knew it was real because 3 of us saw it. And my friend's wife, who has grown up very Catholic, that this stuff is not supposed to exist, she was absolutely losing her mind on our patio, and she was at the point of almost screaming. She was freaking out so much, right? So there is a lot. It's different if you experience it yourself, but when you have other people there experiencing it with you, that opens up a whole different realm to the experience. And I'll be honest with you, the next few days, I didn't sleep a lot. I was too busy trying to figure out what that was. I remember even that night going on Google, trying to Google black triangles to see if there was any triangles out there that were reminiscent of what we had seen that night. And I couldn't find one. And I remember being so distraught and upset that, of course, I remember thinking, of course, everybody sees the triangles that have the the lights on each corner. Mine's all lit up underneath the one we just saw, and we get nothing. You know what I'm saying? We get no photos, no nothing. Nobody seems to have seen what we have seen.
Well, the fact that what you saw was unique in the sense that it didn't have a standard 3-light type deal, that to me even adds more credibility to the fact, or I shouldn't say the fact, but to the possibility that it was not from here, so to speak.
Correct.
You get what I'm saying?
Correct.
So let me tell you what happened with me, and this is, I've been doing a lot of hiking up there in Sedona with this guy Tom Dongo, and it's what's cool is we'll do a hike. It takes about an hour and 20 minutes, and I tell him I want to go to the most remote areas, because he's been to like 100 hikes up there in the Red Red Rock Mountains. I said, take me to the most remote areas where I've told him, and I don't tell him every day, I've seen UFOs in the evening time, but I've never had a daylight sighting. And I would just love to just see something in the daylight, because to me it would have more impact than to see a bright object in the sky. What you saw is different. I mean, that's obvious. But anyway, so he's taking me on these hikes, and I'm paying close attention as I'm walking around. I'm looking in the sky, and I'm not seeing anything, but it's in my head, and I'm thinking about it. I'm not like thinking about it all the time, but I'm thinking about it. So anyway, the time flows through, and it's time for me to go home. It was Thursday last week, and I'm driving from Sedona through back to California, go through Needles, California, which in 2011 they actually had a UFO crash in Needles, California in 2011, which was a pretty interesting story. I'm going to skip over that. So I'm driving through Needles. I'm heading towards I'm on this Highway 40 heading towards Mojave Desert and through California all the way to Bakersfield, all the way to the coast where I'm heading home. And so I get to I can't think of the name of this road. Anyway, there's this road, and it says, I can go left, and that little left is about a 80-mile jaunt across the mountains to Joshua Tree, which you heard of Joshua Tree, 29 Palms.
Many times.
Okay. So I'm thinking in my head, okay, you know what? I could just do this little 80-mile across the mountain or whatever it was. It's going to take me an extra hour and a half. I don't care. I'm not in a hurry to get home. I maybe go spend the night at Joshua Tree. I'm just kind of exploring. So I take the exit, and the road's closed. I'm like, oh, what a drag. So I turn around, and I start to head back, and in my mind, and I've only got about 10 seconds to make this decision. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I could get back on the freeway and just keep going home, or I'm looking ahead straight, and I see this sign that says Mojave Desert National Preserve. And I'm looking at these beautiful mountains in this desert area, and I'm thinking, it's a paved road. I'm just going to drive out here. I'm going to see what's out here. I'm just curious. I may never come here again. I may never drive down this road again. Who knows? I just follow my intuition. So I've started driving down this road, and as I'm going down, every 3 or 4 miles, I would pull over because I would these beautiful sights, I would be taking pictures. And the sign said Kelso, 22 miles. And then after that, there's this town called Baker, Baker, that was 30 some odd miles beyond Kelso. And this is all in the desert mountains where probably maybe 100 people live out there, literally. I'm not exaggerating. So I'm driving along, and I get to this spot about 7 miles in, and all of a sudden I'm seeing these massive formations of granite rocks that just are in the middle of the desert. And the whole desert, you're talking, cactus and dirt and brown mountains. That's it. And not very many mountains, mostly just flat cactus and dirt. And all of a sudden there's all this accumulation of rocks. And I'm thinking, this is interesting. Why are these massive granite rocks? And they were kind of shaped funny too. They almost look like they were placed there, years ago. I'm just imagining that these things, it's weird that they would be in this one spot and nowhere else. So I pull over, and as I pull over to the right, I see this tower on my right that it doesn't look like a cell tower, but it's some sort of power tower, energy tower. I don't know what it was, but it was, obviously some sort of tower that they had out there in the desert for some reason. I don't know what it was exactly. And then to the left, where the rocks were, there's this little road that goes up this little hill, not too high up, maybe 20, 30 yards up the hill. And there's another tower up there, and it looks like a modern day. It doesn't look like a cell phone tower, but I did some research, and some people say it is a cell phone tower, but I've never seen any towers like this before. And it was brand new. Literally, it had just been put there. You could see the concrete had just been laid. It was pretty obvious. So I'm looking at this road. I'm looking at this tower. I'm thinking, do I want to drive up this road and go check out the top of this tower, and then I can look at these rocks? And I'm thinking, no, I don't want to do that because I don't know if my car will make it. So as I'm thinking that, all in that moment, suddenly an orb about 40 feet around literally appears above this tower, about 20 yards above this tower. So from where I was on the road to where that orb was, it was a big orb too. It wasn't a little thing. It was in the daylight at 6:30. It was still light out. It was 120 yards away from me, and the sun is on the right side, and it's shining onto this orb. So the right side of that orb was lighting up. It was like the sun was beaming. It was like a chrome silver color, where it wasn't completely chrome like mirror, but it was chrome silver. And then on the left side, where the sun was not shining, you can just see the shape of it. I mean, it was right there. It was so obvious. And I'm looking at this thing. I was shocked. I mean, I wasn't scared, but I was shocked. I'm thinking, I can't believe that I'm looking at this right here, right now. And there's no cars driving around out there. Nobody lives out there. I mean, imagine the only reason why anybody would even drive out there is for the same reason I was, just because they wanted to go just take a drive. So anyway, so I'm looking at this thing, and, 1,000, 2,000, 5 seconds goes by, and I'm thinking in my head, man, I've got to get a picture of this thing. I've got to videotape this. I've got to show people so they'll know that I'm not, when I tell them the story, they're going to know that it's real. There'll be no doubt about it. So my iPad was on my seat, and it was on because I was listening to the radio, and I had it on my iPad. So I reached down, picked up my iPad, and then I went to click it on the photo mode. All that probably took 2 seconds. I looked back out the window, and the thing was gone. It just vanished. And I was bummed. I was really bummed because I badly wanted to take a picture of it. But I know what I saw, and I was completely sober, just so you know, and I know it was real. So I was excited. So I thought, shit, I was kind of thinking maybe it'll come back. So I literally drove for another 20 miles down this road and then came back. And I'm thinking, maybe I'll get lucky and it'll show up again. But no, it did not show up again. So anyway, the story continues. So I drive on to this town called Barstow, and I stay the night in Barstow. And it's about 30 minutes from Mojave, California, where the Mojave Desert is. There's a town in Mojave. So I get up in the morning out of Barstow, start heading back. I'm driving. I come to Mojave, and on the left-hand side of the road, I see all these old planes. I've seen them before because I've driven up and down this freeway probably 3 or 4 times in the last year. And all these old planes with these kind of colorful tails on them. And I always wondered what they were or if they were still in service. So I had time to kill. It was still in the morning time. And I'm just going to pull over off the road here. I'm going to take this exit. I'm going to drive out there. I'm going to see, what that is, because I was just curious. So I started driving out there. All of a sudden, I see this sign, and this is about 2 miles into the desert. You wouldn't see it from the freeway. It says Mojave Spaceport. And I'm thinking, what is this, Mojave Spaceport? And then all of a sudden, I see these tanks. They're tank-shaped vehicles on wheels. And there's 4 of them. They're rolling out of this area. And I'm thinking, wow, this must be a government area. Because why would these tank army guys be out here, driving through this area? I'm just thinking, what purpose? There must be something. This must be a military station of some sort. So I pulled over and I just kind of let them all drive by, and then I waited, and then they left, and then I drove down this road. I'm thinking, well, if there's going to be a sign that's going to tell me that I can't go down this road, I'm going to see it. But I'm just going to keep driving until I see a sign that tells me I can't be on this road. So I just kept driving, and all of a sudden I come across this massive sign that says Mojave, Community Commercial Center, and it had all the buildings. That little maps where if you wanted to find out where you're going, it was on this sign. So I look to my right and I see these massive buildings. I mean, several massive buildings and these hangars. And I didn't see these from the freeway. So I drive in, and I'm just going up and down these streets, and they're all fenced up about 8-10 feet high with barbed wire, so you can't get in. But then I see Virgin Galactic, Richard Branson. I see his building there. Then I see Stratolaunch, which is Paul Allen's building, and that building is twice as big as Branson's building. Then I see the International Space Station Airport Training Center, and then I see TSC. I see all these companies with these massive buildings. So I pull over into this parking lot, and I go and this one there, and it says Training Center. So I thought in my head, I go, I'm going to try to find out if I can get some information. I'm taking pictures the whole time of all these buildings. I'm going to see if somebody can tell me what's going on out there, because I was curious. So I walk in the door, and there's a lady there. She's about 55, 60 years old. Turns out she's the office lady that handles the books there. And I kind of made up a little story. I said, yeah, I've got a friend that's looking to, do some, space, or not space, what did I say? He wants to get into some sort of training program. for the future. I said, is this a government facility or is this a private facility? She said, no, it's a private facility, but we are a government contractor. She goes, so she starts to give me this spiel. So what I did is, right away, I had my iPad in my hand, so I just, without even really acting like I was doing anything at all, I just flipped it up and I put it on video and I just started recording on it. Yeah,
hey, I got a quick question for you in regards to the orb that you saw. Considering what was in the area, how do you know it was a UFO and not some sort of other project, considering, all the billionaires' space clubs have buildings around there?
Exactly. That you hit it. That was the next thing I was going to tell you. So I talked to this lady for about 6 or 7 minutes. She was telling me the story that it's $1 million per person to be trained to fly as a space pilot. And she says we train people from all over the world, da-da-da-da-da. So I'm ready to leave. It's about 7 minutes into this little chat I had with her. And I said, let me share something with you, ma'am. I said, I was staying up the street here last night, and then I saw this orb appear over these towers. And just all of a sudden it appeared. I told her the story just like I told you. And I said, have you ever seen anything like that, or do you know anything about this? And she didn't even hesitate. She says, well, we have some very exotic technology. That's exactly what she said. We have some very exotic technology. And I thought, wow, maybe there's some sort of technology. But, but here's what I'm thinking is, I've never seen orb technology. I've seen triangle technology. I've seen saucer technology. You know what I'm saying? But I've never seen a round orb ball. I've tried to think, why would the government or any institution be building a 40-foot round chrome ball? Just that part, that didn't add up. But who knows? So in my mind, it starts going in a lot of different directions. I left that place, and I'm driving home. I'm thinking, what those towers that I saw out there? What? And this is where my imagination went for a minute, because I'm trying to debunk my sighting. Really, is what I'm trying to do. I'm not sure what I saw. I just know I saw something. And I thought to myself, what if those towers are not cell towers? What if these are like 5G or whatever towers, and these towers have the ability to do holographic projections? I know it sounds like a reach, but, that's the only thing it could have been, was a holographic projection, or it was real. It was one or the other. But why would they be doing holographic projections out in the middle of the desert, or some sort of test system? And then they had to know that I was there, and they had to know probably that I was going to record it, because why would it disappear within 2 seconds after I decided to reach down and grab my iPad and take a picture? So you know what I mean? It just didn't add up.
I can see where you say it doesn't add up. I don't think, I'm going to go against your paranoia here a little bit and say I don't think that they knew that Eric with a K was there. But it is interesting indeed when this lady whom you're talking to is telling you point blank that we have some very exotic technology around here.
Exactly. And it could have been a cover for her. She could have been trained to say that to anybody. You never know. But here's the thing. I asked her, I go, how long have you worked here? And she goes, I've only been here since November. I go, oh, is your family in this business? No. I go, oh, really? So she was one of those kind of ladies that she shouldn't probably have been talking as much as she told me a lot of stuff. I don't even know she was supposed to be telling me, but she'd only been there for 6 months. So she was all excited. She was like, she probably doesn't have anybody to talk to. She's out there in the middle of the desert. Nobody ever comes in the door. No strangers ever walk to the door. But here's where it gets really good, Dave. This is the part that you're going to love. This is the best part of this.
I'm pulling up the socks for this one. Pulling up the socks for this one.
Now, this is going to sound, this is like right out of a Twilight Zone movie story, this part. So, while I was out there, I had my cell phone, plenty of bars before I got to that spot. When I got to that spot, and I went to pick up my phone, I was going to start calling my friends and telling them, hey, I just saw this thing, da-da-da-da-da. I had no service on my cell phone, so I thought to myself, if that's a cell tower, why would I not have cell service here? I was only 7 miles off the freeway. It didn't make any sense to me. So as I drove back to the freeway, or later that day, I was driving down the road Friday the next day, and I called up my friend Tom Dongo, who lives in Sedona. He's 73 years old, and been a remote viewer for over 35 years, and I'm pretty sure he's psychic also. But he actually worked, the government actually studied his remote viewing abilities at one time years ago. So I told him the story, and he says, wow, that's interesting. But we didn't really, we didn't sit there and talk about it much. And then he calls me back later in the day, and this is where it gets really good. He says, I got to tell you, he goes, I remote viewed that area that you were at. I was trying to find that orb. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I couldn't find the orb, but I ran into 4 aliens. And I'm not making this up, Dave, just so you know. I'm not pulling away. He says they were in very, very shiny, colorful uniforms. He said they were beautiful, these uniforms. And these aliens looked very human-like, but they looked oriental. He says their eyes were kind of slanted. He said they were about maybe 5 feet tall, and there was 4 of them. He said 2 men and 2 women. And he said he was asking them questions telepathically, however he was doing it with his remote viewing. And they told him they were from this planet, and I've got it written down. I think it's Pio. It's a star system in the Pleiades. It's Peony, I think is how it's pronounced. And I looked it up since, and it does exist. And so these beings told Tom that, Tom asked him, my friend Eric, it's going to sound crazy, my friend Eric was out there, and he saw an orb. And he goes, and the beings told Tom, oh, we know Eric. We are the watchers. We've been watching Eric since he was 5 years old. And Eric probably don't even know this. He probably won't even remember it, but we actually met him when he was 10 years old. And when he told me that, it kind of blew my mind because I don't have any recollection of that. But this guy has no reason to pull my leg. He's not a jokester. He's not one of these kind of guys that, comes out of left field and tries to play a whammy on me. So anyway, I thought, I'm going to have a regression. I'm going to find out. I mean, maybe that's why I'm interested in all this stuff. I've never been able to understand why I'm so obsessed with all this. And it's only been for a few years. It's not been my whole life. So, maybe there's a link. I don't know. But I find it very interesting that happened.
Very intriguing indeed. Have you had the regression yet?
No, I found all this out just in the last few days. I mean, we're talking Friday, and then I had to work this past weekend, so I was just kind of I was in that mode. And then, Monday, Tuesday, and here I am. I contacted Lori McDonald, and she's not available. She's going to, I think, Switzerland. She's going to do a talk because I was hoping she would be a contact in the desert, but she's not going to be there. But I did I didn't tell the story to Geraldine Orozco, but I am going to talk with Geraldine Orozco, and maybe she might be able to, I'll find somebody who can do, either a regression or maybe give me some sort of psychic insights. If there's anybody listening right now that wants to help me with this, they know how to reach me. I'm on Twitter, @AwakeningMan, or if you can't find me there, get a hold of Dave. I mean, I'm ready to know. I'm ready.
He's all over the place. Try Melinda Leslie. She may have an idea. Melinda Leslie may have an idea with that.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. So wouldn't that be a trip? I mean, it's these watcher beings from the Pleiades, the 9th Pleiades star system, apparently. And I was told, I don't know if you've had remember Elizabeth April? She used to be on your show a while back.
Yes. Great lady.
She was the first.
Great lady.
She was the first person ever to tell me, and I think it was on your show, as a matter of fact. When I called in, she was doing free readings. I don't know if you recall this. And she said that she didn't know anything about me or who I was, and she said that my star ancestry is from Pleiades, the Pleiadians. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I never heard that before. And then after that, I had talked to maybe 2 or 3 other psychics on different shows throughout that year, and none of them knew anything because I just would say, what can you tell me? Why am I interested in this? And they all said Pleiades. So now this happens, and these guys in these shiny suits are saying that they're from this 9th star system, the Pleiades. So I don't know. It's strange, but who knows? It's interesting. I find it exciting. I'd be happy to be a Pleiadian. I'd have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm. With your height, maybe you are.
You never know.
Maybe you are. Maybe you're one of them. Are you one of them, Eric, with a K? That's why you spelt your name with a K instead of a C.
Exactly. Yeah. Lots. Yeah. So that's I ate up most of your talk time there. So anyway, I don't know if you got other callers coming in, but I just wanted to share that with you because that was kind of exciting for me. I'm looking forward to going back to the desert. Actually, the Kelso Dunes, or it's called the Kelso Dunes. It's about a 4-mile drive off the freeway, which I didn't take. But I've got this Toyota 4-wheel drive truck that I just got fixed up, and it's ready. So I'm probably going to go back out there before contacting the desert in a couple of weeks and just go camp out there for a couple of days. And if I don't see anything, I'm not going to make anything up. I'll never make anything up. I don't want to be known as somebody that's out there telling stories. If it's real, I'm going to tell you. If it's not real, I'm not going to make nothing up. I guarantee you, on my life, I'll never lie about that. I promise you, on my life. So if it happens, I'll tell you. If it doesn't happen, I'm not going to make anything up. I'm not one of those kind of guys.
Well, I appreciate
I don't know
that.
if you can tell that, but anyway, I'm sure you run into these people. I mean, you wonder sometimes, right? Your stories in the back of your mind, you're wondering?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I think, we've heard some pretty wacky and wild stories around here, and, I wouldn't call yours wacky. I think it's plausible. I really do. Knowing you personally and hanging out with you, I think you have the right intentions on everything, and you're not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, which is, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah.
You're just trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and that's fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah. And, I know a lot of people have had way more exciting experiences, than that. But what it does for me, though, is if based on the little bit that I have experienced so far, it leads me to think that it's easier to accept and believe the other stories, not saying all of them, but it's more plausible to me to accept some of these other people, what they say. Mm-hmm. It kind of puts me to that next level of acceptance, I guess is probably the best way to put it. And eventually, if I can look at that damn thing for more than 4 or 5 seconds, or actually see one land, Tom Dongo's seen one land before, actually out there in the desert out there at Boynton Canyon, near the Bradshaw Ranch. He used to do tours out there. He had 6 people with him. He had one craft came out one night. It was right before the sunset and landed out there. And these light beings emerged from the craft, and they were kind of floating around the craft with these wands, and he was just assuming that maybe they were trying to repair their craft or something. Who knows what they were doing, but they sat out there and watched that thing for like an hour and a half, and then it started to get dark, and the people, he was with a bunch of people, and they had to get home, so they left, and that craft was still there. I mean, can you imagine that? Seeing a craft landed on the ground, you're looking at that thing for an hour and a half, and then you're like, man, I can't leave. I'll stay here all night. I don't care. I want to see it until that thing gets up and flies away. I'm not leaving. But anyway, that's a true story too. I believe Tom Dongo. He's been confirmed to be a truthful person. He's not one of these, fibber kind of guys.
Eric with the K, I appreciate you calling on in tonight. We're going to move on over to the Thought of the Dave. Great story. Great stories. Keep up the great work, my friend. Keep up the great work.
Okay, I'll talk to you. All right, good night, brother.
Good night. Bye-bye. Thought of the Dave coming up right now. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question during the day, and then we get you to respond, because we always love to read your responses on the air from those who are listening into this show and hanging out with us on a daily basis. So thank you so much for doing that. Today's Thought of the Dave is, what's the best piece of paranormal evidence you have ever collected? And we got some pretty good responses on this. Very good responses. So we're going to start off on Twitter here, where I believe it's Graham. Graham, where's your comment here? I knew it was here somewhere. Of course. just happens to jump by right on Skype here. It was Gregory who says several orbs, one the size of a basketball, 100 meters away for 5 or 6 minutes, and we had a 3-meter wide craft drop in within several small orbs for over an hour. It was sensational. Purchasing a good quality night vision scope this month. Hope to capture good pics. I will keep you posted. Greg also runs a company or a group just south of me called CE5 out of Kelowna, British Columbia. So very, very excited about that. Very excited about that. Graham says, group eyewitness of an etheric shapeshifter in 1979, and me and my brother Michael spoke of it again after silence and fear and wonder for 20-plus years. Only now does Michael ask me, what was it? I have told him what it was. Shapeshifters. I don't know how I would react to shapeshifters coming on in around here. I really don't. It would be absolutely freaky. I think if you're dealing with something that is paranormal, like a ghost or something along those lines, that's fine. But when you see, say, something go from the shape of a human being to a large cat or a bear or whatever, that's where things get real, don't you think? That's where all of a sudden this doesn't become fun anymore, that you're dealing with something that is just way too out there. Way too out there. Let's get to Michael. Michael on Twitter says, to be fair, it's my mate's evidence, but it's EVPs from the West Virginia State Prison. Best EVPs ever. No doubt to what you're hearing. I love it when we have EVPs that you can hear so clearly. It's so nice when the ghosts speak up and you can actually hear them. You're not like, what? What did you say? I need clarification. It's like the NHL on the goal rule. We got to go to an instant replay to try and figure out if it's a goal or not. Same thing with the EVPs. Is that saying who, what, where, when, or why? You never know. You never know. Goddess Michelle from Twitter, thank you. She says, well, I have never collected any evidence. I am a true believer that seeing is believing. Anyone who has truly seen something usually believes. Michelle's part of our Twitter crowd at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, so thank you so much for the knowledge on that, Michelle. And you are very, very talented with what you see. Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers hops on in. He says, this is the best catch we have had out in the field. We don't know what it was. Maybe it could be considered paranormal. The size of the object is 10 to 20 feet. And it made no sound or couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Absolutely phenomenal. So go to UFO Seekers or onto our Twitter account, and you can check out his YouTube video that he tagged in there. All right, let's go over to Facebook. Adam, the big ad gnome, finally does not post anything about a gnome, but then he does. He says, just recently a star in the sky that has never been there before that I was able to get a picture of with my phone. It is way brighter than any other star. But when I saw a smaller star zigzag into the brighter light, I'm sure it's a mothership. I stared at it for a few minutes, and it has a reddish-brown aura I've never been able to catch in a star on my camera phone. This is amazing. I had a very calm feeling when I was looking at it, so I'm sure without a doubt it's friendly. Or maybe, Ad Gnome, maybe it's not friendly, just like you were not friendly with us, and you were always torturing me about gnomes. Maybe they were here to abduct you, give you a little Whitley treatment. All because you bugged me from gnomes. Maybe that's Carl's ship saying, hey, Ad Gnome, it's time for some revenge. It's time for some revenge. You never know. For those of you who don't know, Adam tortures me with gnome pictures every single day. Every day. Kevin, we call him Mooney in the Spreaker chat room, says, I have on DVD in full HD 127,000 people, all under the control of an invisible being. They are giving it their money, chanting ritualistic passages, and kneeling down before it. Hundreds are rolling around on the ground while speaking at what sounds like gibberish, but they claim to be speaking in a special language directly to their god. It is incredible. A lot of them have even killed in its name multiple times. This is what I get for reading these unsolicited and cold. I would say that's a shot over religion's bow, right there. A shot over religion's bow. Or it's a football game, and it's a bunch of college football people supporting their team. One of the two, because they chant a lot, too. It's either about religion or college football. One of the two. Can't figure out what it was. Cindy jumps in and says, I actually have a 2-inch scar at the base of my neck from a surgery that I've never had. Well, I think you've had it now. I think you've had it now. She actually provided a picture on this. You can actually see the scratch in there. I don't know if it's a surgical scratch or maybe, as a kid, you go to Grandpa and Grandma's farm and there's barbed wire and you run into the barbed wire because kids, for some reason, are like magnets to barbed wire. I don't know what that could be. Dolly says, if I can find it, a UFO video over where I live, about 6 to 7 or more UFOs disappearing, reappearing. Happened around 2004, 2005 before we went overseas to visit family. But I'd need to try and find the disc, literally a green disc that says UFO sighting. I remember being picked up by my neighbor, and I was crying a lot because I had such a strange feeling, like I knew something. My dad was so fascinated, and I was glad he recorded it. The street was full of my neighbors Googling and goggling these UFOs. I reviewed the tape some years later and found they made the shape of Orion star system. I need to find it again, but I believe since I moved, it has been stolen or destroyed. We'd see a lot more UFOs and have strange dreams. I was about 9 when the sightings and possible visitations would ramp up. Could you imagine seeing that? I would love to see that tape or that disc of these UFOs coming out as the Orion star. I hope it was daylight, because nighttime, it could be the Orion star system, the constellation. Hopefully it wasn't daytime. All right, let's move on here. Let's go over to Eric Mitchell, who says, borderline PST and physical trauma brought on by what some might call a UFO. The investigation is still pending on scientific study and lacks funds to do so. The worst incident was being held to my driveway by an extreme vibration. Physical effects are still unknown by doctors. Heather jumps in. Got a picture of 2 completely by accident, one at Quesnel Forks of a cowboy as we were taking the dogs for a late-night walk. Many orbs down there, but the best was a picture of my son-in-law here, what looked like a huge orb on his shirt, so sent it in at the time to Scotland Paranormal Investigations. They tended to think it was an orb, very large, with a face in it. Have to track down that picture in my archives. You never know things around here sometimes. Janine, electric orbs, out one evening with Jim Kolesnik and Vancouver Supernatural. Purple plasma that held a charge floated from the floor to the K2 sitting on the desk. We're going to leave it at that, my friends. I want to say thank you to Shannon Taggart for hopping on in, talking about paranormal photography. What an interesting topic, to say the least. Interesting topic. Her website, shannontaggart.com. Thank you to Eric with a K for his amazing stories once again. Love it when Eric with a K calls on in. You were abducted, my friend. You were abducted. Just ask Tom Dongo. He'll tell you. And I agree with him, by the way. Tomorrow night on the program, we have Julia Sellers coming on in. OBEs, out-of-body experiences. And we're going to be talking multi-dimensions as well. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. Also want to give a shout-out to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, who is rocking us in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. I want to say a big shout out to everybody listening at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for tuning Spaced Out Radio in tonight. Biggest shout outs go to the Twitter crowd at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. The snark was beautiful tonight, gentle but beautiful. Everyone in the Spreaker chat room, everyone who participated on Periscope, thank you. And the Veterans Club on Facebook, the SOR Space Travelers, you were awesome as well. Thank you so much for sharing the show. Thanks for talking about us on social media, helping spread the word, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. You know what that is. We need you to take us home. Have a good one, everyone. Talk to you tomorrow. Good night.
This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you